I want you to think about the person in your school who always figures it out. You know who it is. The teacher everyone goes to, the person who never misses deadlines, the one who remembers procedures that nobody documented, the one who smooths over conflict, the one who quietly fixes problems before leadership even notices. Maybe that person's even you. Schools celebrate these people. We call them leaders. We say they're reliable and dedicated. We even call them the backbone of the school. But today, I want to ask a harder question. What if that person isn't evidence that the system is healthy? What if they're evidence that the system is overloaded? Today, we're talking about compensatory heroes, the people who quietly absorb ambiguity and keep schools functioning long after the system should have signaled distress. I remember a point in my career when I was carrying more than I realized. It was early on in my teaching career. I was coordinating initiatives, I was supporting colleagues, managing problems. I was doing a lot of emotional labor. I was handling details that weren't officially mine because if I didn't, things would stall. Eventually, I admitted to my principal that I was absolutely exhausted. I expected concern, but instead she smiled and she said, "Kathy, you're the backbone of the school." At the time, I felt proud. I thought, awesome, my work matters, I'm noticed. But years later, I realized something uncomfortable. Why did the school need a backbone? And why did it have to be a teacher? Why were multiple initiatives resting on one person? That is not evidence of a healthy system. It's evidence that a system had learned to rely on compensation. And when people like that leave, like I did, the initiative collapses because the structure needed to sustain them never existed. One of the hardest things about education is that teaching is deeply identity connected work. Most educators care deeply. We don't usually enter education for status or money. We connect meaning to competence. So when systems become unclear, a lot of teachers don't think, this process is confusing. They tend to think, what am I missing? Everyone else seems to understand. Maybe I'm behind. Maybe I should work harder. That's professional identity threat. When expectations become vague, people start monitoring themselves instead of solving the problem. They ask fewer questions. They become quieter. They over-prepare. Sometimes they stop taking risks. They try to earn safety through performance. And because they're trying harder, leaders may think everything is fine. But inside, energy is shifting away from creativity and towards self-protection. Here's where this gets dangerous. High-performing educators often become human shock absorbers. When expectations are unclear, they create spreadsheets. When communication is fragmented, they translate. When timelines are unrealistic, they stay late. When nobody owns the process, they quietly own it. But compensation changes the signals that leaders receive. Because if good people keep catching the falling pieces, the system never feels the impact. Think about that. If teachers repeatedly absorb the strain, the system never receives accurate feedback. No friction, no visible breakdown, no pressure to redesign. The school appears stable because people are stabilizing it manually. That's why some schools suddenly seem to fall apart after one person leaves. It didn't actually fall apart. The compensation disappeared. One question I ask myself now is, if this person stopped doing extra tomorrow, would the process still work? If the answer is no, that means there's a gap in the system. One of the ideas I care about deeply is that adults don't usually dysregulate the way children do. Adults rarely melt down publicly. Adults tend to tighten, they become quieter, more careful, they withdraw. They become less willing to share and less likely to volunteer. They start doing only what is required. A lot of times, schools will interpret these signals as resistant. They'll say she's disengaged, he doesn't care, they're negative. Maybe, but sometimes what we're seeing is overload, people protecting bandwidth, sometimes people trying not to fail publicly, people conserving energy. The teacher who used to bring 10 ideas to meetings now brings none. It might not be resistance. That might be adaptation. When leaders interpret dysregulation as attitude instead of capacity, we accidentally respond with more pressure. We do more check ins, more accountability, more compliance, and the cycle tightens. Instead of asking, why are they resisting? Try asking, what conditions made participation feel unsafe? I want to leave you with three questions. One, who are the people your school quietly depends on? Two, what work are they carrying that should belong to the system? And three, if they stopped compensating tomorrow, what would become visible? Include yourself, by the way, when you're looking at who this is. Remember that compensatory heroes are extraordinary people, but healthy schools should not require heroics. Your best people shouldn't have to absorb ambiguity to keep improvement moving. Leadership isn't building a school that works because of one person, including you. It's building a school that still works after they leave. Thanks for listening to Balance by Design. If this episode made you think of someone, please send it to them. If this video resonated with you, I'd love for you to go deeper. Beyond Relationships is the book behind this entire series. It's written specifically for school leaders who want a real framework for navigating the professional relationships that shape their schools. And if you're a teacher watching this, start with Stay Grounded. It's built for educators in the classroom and the foundation everything else builds on. Links to both are in the description.